So welcome everyone to this last session, last experts meeting. It has been a very intense month indeed, as someone wrote in the chat. So this meeting gives us the opportunity to recap what has been happening during the past 4 weeks and discuss further the content of this week, which had to do with ocean education and ocean communication. We invite you all to have an open discussion with us. Let me just start with the usual. You can see my screen, right?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is our last session before closing this hybrid university. You are welcome to have your cameras open if you have an internet connection that allows that. Please remove any other distractions, and you are welcome, as I said before, to take the floor and have an open discussion with the experts we have this time online. So we will start with going over the past 4 weeks and the topics we have discussed. Then we will invite the experts to start from responding to specific questions, and we can all together have an open discussion before closing the hybrid university. We are very happy this week. We have with us Ms. Aravella Zachariou from the Pedagogic Institute of the Education Ministry and head of the ESD unit in Cyprus. Aravella has been since joining us as co-organizer and has been instrumental also in phase 1. As we have said many times this year, part of phase 1 took place in Cyprus, that hosted all the sessions there. I see online Mr. Harilau, and we're very happy for that. We had him also the previous week, so welcome again. And of course, our professor and scientific coordinator, Professor Skoulas, whom you all know. So we will start with a discussion around the questions, and then we can have a discussion. So let me remind everyone a little bit about the dates. We launched this course on the 9th of January, and from week to week, we gradually progressed in the terms of content, starting from the ocean importance. Why is the ocean important? Then the challenges it faces. And then on week 3, some proposals to deal with these challenges, so the way forward, including management. And in the last week, we discussed about education and communication in the formal and non-formal education settings. So officially, the course ends this Sunday, this coming Sunday, but you have 1 week to finish all your assignments and the tests that are included in the course in order to get your certificate. A little bit about the numbers. The picture is more clear now that we are in week 4. So we have around 100 learners that are actively engaged in the process of learning within the course. Of course, some of them are more behind. Some of them have already completed all the tasks. But gradually, I hope that all these 100 people complete the course successfully. It is true that in this live Meet the Experts meeting, we have limited live attendance, but we see that the videos are then watched by many people when they are uploaded online on YouTube and shared with you. In yellow color, I have highlighted the champion countries, the countries from where we have the more participants. So the first country is Greece with around 25 25 participants, but we have many participants from Italy, South Africa, Spain, Cyprus, Lebanon, and Indonesia, surprisingly, a country that is outside the Mediterranean. Now, to complete the course, please have in mind as you browse in the platform, at the bottom of every unit, of every screen, you have this button, complete and continue. You need to click on it in order for the platform to know that you have seen the video. So please don't forget to do that. Every week, from week 1 to week 3, we have a question for you. We call it assignment, but it's actually a reflection question asking you to put in practice the learnings of the week. So you need to have this also submitted. In the end, in week 4, we have a final test with simple questions, and you have 3 permissions to retake it in case you fail, and the pass score is 80%. So you need to have a pass mark there. And complete also the evaluation survey. This is an anonymous survey, but I would like to ask every one of you to complete it. And once you have done all that, enter your name when you are in the platform. You will see that your certificate will be automatically enabled. So we will not send out the certificates. This will be done automatically. And you will see also next to the title of the course, the word completed here. So you know that you have done everything. If you have done everything, you don't see this, please email to us, and we will see case by case with each one of you. So some people ask how long the course will be open. The course will be open throughout February for you to again visit, browsing the content and watch the videos and so on. The references are collected in one a single PDF, and it is shared with you. It is already online in the platform. However, the videos, although they are open in YouTube, you need to keep the links if you want to follow them again, because after 1 month, since this is a synchronous course, so it requires the tutors along with the learners. So after 1 month, we will close it and hopefully reopen next year. Now, what have we done in the past 4 weeks? So when we introduced this course, we introduced it as a puzzle. We informed you that this will be a compilation of learning content that will be mandatory and optional. So there was a minimum content for all of you to follow, but then we had a lot of optional content in these red highlights that you could read, or extra videos that you could watch. We had some self-reflection questions asking you to put in to think how the learnings of the course are applied in your own situation. And we had a lot of extra resources inviting you to browse in them. We had videos that linked us to phase A, so testimonials from people that attended the live session in Cyprus. We had other online videos and examples existing, and we have, of course, the invited video lectures from the experts, with whom we had the opportunity to meet also in the live sessions every Friday. Now participants were asked to do these weekly assignments as well, and they could interact through the Padlets and the Slido Slido questions. So there were multiple ways of interacting with the course content throughout these past 4 weeks. A note on evaluation from us, from the Secretariat: such courses are valuable, or give the more you give to such courses, the more you will get out of them. So the more time you develop in really watching the videos, taking notes, keeping your own diary, as we said in week 1, interacting with experts, the more meaningful it will be for you. One participant asked us if we could find ways or an award system to motivate learners and keep them in constant interaction with us. For example, an idea was to have a follow-up meeting to keep the interaction and this experience exchanged live. So we have this, actually, some of you have this opportunity. As you know, the hybrid university takes place every 1 or 2 years in biosphere research. So be attentive to the next call, possibly next year or the year after. But other than that, if you are based in Europe and you want to have an interactive live in-person meeting with us, we hold a training that is devoted to marine litter and ocean literacy for European formal and non-formal educators. We run this course since 4 years now, and if you are a Europe-based institution, and you can apply for a KA1 Erasmus Plus funding for mobilities, we will be happy to welcome you here in Athens. We offer 2 dates this year, one in May and one in October. And the deadline to apply for Erasmus Plus is approaching, is on 23 of February. If you are in a Europe-based organization and you don't know how to apply, please email to us and we will instruct you on the steps you can take in order to have a successful funding, and we will be glad to meet you in person here in Athens. Other ways to stay connected after this course ends, it was posed also in the Slido questions you addressed. So the ICO, the International Oceanographic Commission, holds this global stakeholder action. The link is shared in this PPT, but it is also shared in the recommended reading. So you have. So please enroll yourself in this platform. It's an interactive platform where experts around the ocean decade themes enroll and exchange examples, experiences, know-how. This is very useful for all of us as a common platform throughout the decade. Other initiatives that are closely relating to the school community is the EU for Ocean communities that has set up this European Blue Schools network. It is also shared in the resources, and the European Marine Science Educators Association, on which you can enroll. There are some youth platforms that may be relevant to you, such as the YUNGA from the UN. The UNESCO Venice holds an engaging youth network since some years now. Us personally here in the Secretariat, of course, if you are not already members, please join our network at medies.net and at mioxd.org. I think, now let's see the contents of this week. So this week we started with a presentation from Francesca on the ocean literacy framework within the ocean decade. And then we had some concrete ways and examples of how ocean literacy could be integrated in the formal education system at all levels, and examples of, and how it can be integrated in the non-formal education system. We were exposed to some examples from all around the world, and we had also 2 speakers that focused on effective ocean communication. And without, yes, I think it's over. If you have any questions, you are welcome to ask me or write in the chat. I will respond to this throughout this course. And without any other delay, I will give the floor to Professor Skoulos to welcome you and start discussing the Slido questions.
Thank you, Iro, and welcome to everybody. I'm very glad we have this opportunity again today, also with Arabella. And I have a number of questions, but you have also the opportunity to intervene during the discussion. There are some more general and some other more specific questions. I start with a very general one, which is indeed the most difficult issue, the central issue for not only for ocean literacy, but for environmental education and education for sustainable development, how we can enforce our power in behavioral changes. Not enforce, I believe it is to encourage or empower actually people on that. This is a very important thing. It requires, it is a matter of a process. And in all these processes, we have three aspects. The one is to show how a cleaner environment, a healthy environment is beneficial for us, for our health. So it is very anthropocentric and egoistic, if you wish, but it is normal that you want to live in a healthy environment, you, your family, your children, your loved ones. The second is to see that without a protected natural resource, we as a society have a big problem. If we don't have water, clean water, if we don't have clean air, the society suffers. So it is a social good. It is part to be protected collectively, again, because of the value for the society. It is again anthropocentric, but it is again the basis of our health, public health, and well-being, and also economy. And the third is the intrinsic value, the value that gives us inspiration. It is what makes us understand that it's worthy to live. It is not only to eat and drink and buy things, but also to see nature, to appreciate species, to appreciate culture, to appreciate things that go beyond what we buy. And this is these three things need all of them to be in the center of our education. It is something that on which we have to come again and again, having a balance between the benefits, the most, let's say, immediate needs and benefits we get from the environment to satisfy these needs, and also the inspiration we get for our next steps. Even for science, we need this inspiration for creation, for innovation, for everything. So these are the ways in which we empower behavioral changes, we as educators. And this is something that is not done once. It is something on which we have to return constantly, every day. When we teach, whatever we teach, we touch upon that with one or two words. It's not necessary to preach for everything. It is something that is in our mind, and we come back to that all the time. Now, the ocean literacy offers many opportunities for all of that because of the big benefits ocean brings to us for our health, for our society, and also for inspiration. So it is in the heart of what we are discussing this week, the elements to inspire the changes on behavior, because to change your behavior, you have to believe on something. To believe on something, you have to appreciate values. And this is the background of the entire system we are trying actually to establish within education. I'm sure that that Arabella will add to that a few more things. But one of the questions says that still ocean literacy is underestimated in our society. For sure it is. It is a new one. It is relatively new because many of us don't know enough about the ocean. Is still the unknown part of our planet. And this is why UNESCO and the UN system as a whole devotes a whole decade for that. Now, there is it says that maybe an action at policy level. Many actions at many policy levels. The one is at policy level on education. We need to establish that. We need to have many more elements based on observations, on facts, and on life in our education to make it vivid, accurate, and inspiring. And the second is the activity out of that. I mean, education, as we know, it is, at the end of the day, is not only knowledge, it is to a large extent also action. So the action for the protection has behind it policies. Many policies exist, but they are not fully implemented, enforced. Other policies need to be developed, and through education, we inspire and inform citizens, young citizens, through them, their families, but also older citizens, about the needed policy changes. And this is how also the whole environment movement and civil society movement is actually nourished through awareness and education. Now, there was another question saying that marine litter is a well-known issue, and what still is missing is strong policy behind. People complain on that. And also Ifat Edris from Lebanon also says that ocean literacy is a long process, and we need results cannot be seen soon. We need firm law implementation, and how we can, the second part, big polluters collaborate. Indeed, we can, even if we change the word, even if we are very successful to change the word through education, it takes time, particularly if we are talking about young people. that will become decision makers in 20 years, in 15 years. We need action now. And we need action by the informed and educated people today. This is why we want also education to go to the universities, education and ocean literacy and education on environment and sustainable development, but also on graduates and all of us. So indeed, the education should go hand in hand with implementation of legislation, because this helps also in raising confidence among people that when we know something and when we ask for something, this has a result. If there is no active action at government level or local authorities level, and of course among citizens, people are demoralized, and our work as educators is becoming more difficult. So it is normal that educators and formal and non-formal and NGO networks and civil society networks have this dual objective at the same time: educate, inform, advocate, but also put pressure on the system for the implementation of the legislation and for the acceptance of new legislation. So these go hand in hand. This is why we say that environmental educators cannot have a distance from what they teach. They have to, at the same time, to be for education. It's not only about, it's not only in, it's not, it is also for education. That means convinced and convincing at the same time about education. I will stop here. I have many more questions to answer, but I stop here perhaps on this first group of questions. Perhaps Arabella has to add a few more things, or some of you, and then I come to the rest because I have other 6, 7 questions to answer. Arabella, to you.
Yes. Thank you, Michalis. Thank you, Professor Skoulos. I was listening very carefully on what did you say, and I fully agree. I would like to reflect on your views about the first four questions. First of all, regarding the question of how we enforce the power in behavior change, from my point of view, we have to realize that we cannot discuss about behavioral changes as a part of the formal education. We have seen many research the last decades indicating that despite the efforts that we are doing from pre-primary, primary, secondary education, and we saw changes in the students' behavior, and this includes also ocean literacy. However, if we see these behavioral changes in the general framework of the society, are disappeared. And this has to do, and is reflect to what you said. Behavioral changes is a long-term and lifelong learning process, and is not related only to the education as we used to mention it as part of formal education. So we have to strengthen all the levels and all the forms of education to this direction. Otherwise, even we are investing to youth, I'm afraid that youth not in collaboration, in reaction with what's happening in the society, they will lose their power. Second, behavioral changes prerequisite education that is not concentrated in knowledge, that is not focused in knowledge. We have to admit that knowledge is the easiest thing that we can gain now. I mean that we have access in everything. What we have to learn is how to reach to a scientifically articulate knowledge. But what is missing to this process of behavior change is the emotions. And that all these things that they will motivate and accelerate actions and inspire people to feel that they have the power, they have the ownership to do something. So behavior change is something, you know, very tricky and very difficult to be achieved if we don't understand that is not something that relates with the educators and the students. A behavior change has to do with the learning for each one of us. And in relation with social literacy, this is more important because it's strange. I will tell you an example from Cyprus. We are an island and we are not behaving as islanders. We are behaving as a country that we are in the Central Europe. Means that we are far away in our minds that we are surrounded by a sea, and the ocean literacy and what the previous generations have with ocean literacy, their relation with the sea as part of their identity is something that we missed. So we have to start working on this process, not just saying all the impacts of the rest of the sustainable models of behavior reflected to oceans, but to see that without the oceans, we can't survive as part of our identity. So the culture, the history, the connection with all these things that make us as Mediterraneans to survive all these centuries, we must regain it. Yes, I also agree that it's underestimated. It's underestimated because despite the fact that we're talking about SDGs, it seems that SDGs at the end of the day are focused on specific SDGs. Because the main issue that is coming is the biodiversity loss, which is very important, is the climate change, which is very important, is equity, which is very important. But we don't listen easily in every fora, maybe I'm mistaken, Michael, to include in their discussion and the issue of ocean literacy. Ocean literacy must be part of the society and be discussed in the equal way as we discussed all the other issues. Society is not familiar with this term. And the third, if it's an issue of policy, and if we need action at policy level, compare with the question that people they complain that there is missing a strong policy behind. From my point of view, the issue are not the policies. The most easy thing, if you decide to make a policy, is to make a policy. And all these issues are very, catchy issues. And we can find policies on ocean literacy. Policy is not enough. What is needed is a plan to implement it. It's not just to have a guidelines. Policies, nobody didn't save nobody. I mean that we have to put the measures, the work plan activities, the strategy, on how you will implement this policy. And the problem that we are facing, and this is not related only with ocean literacy policies, it relates to every policy, is that there is a contradiction between what we have as policies and what we are doing in practice. And we are reaching at the end, having great policies, great theoretical documents without anything behind it. So from my point of view, what is critical is to establish these practical frameworks that shows to everybody how can move forward to this ocean literacy that all of us, we are saying that we are worried. And something final that I would like to mention is that it's not enough to complain. It's not enough to have strikes. What is very important for each one of us to be part of the process is to have the competences to be part of the formation of the policies, to negotiate, to know how can its power as a thinker and as a citizen, as an active citizen, can impact these policies. What is my feeling, what I have as a feeling is that it's very easy to complain. It's very easy to go out in strikes. It's very hard to see how we can be engaged to these processes and what we are needed, each one of us, I'm not excluding myself, is to know how I will be the solution to the problem, not just the problem, by participating to this decision making, to this goal design, to this decision making, of course, and be a part of action. Michael, I will stop to this group of questions. I will not continue, and I will pass the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all these important things you said, and I reconfirm that environmental education, education for sustainable development, ocean literacy as part of it, climate education or literacy as part of it, all of them are revolutionary educations in the sense that they require our commitment to walk actually our talk. What we are saying requires examples and requires support in action. Some of you, one of you mentions somewhere preaching the convinced. If you mean this group, yes, indeed, this group are convinced. But all of us teach every day hundreds and thousands of people through what we say and what we actually do. And this is very important for all of us to understand. Not all people would be convinced to the level we are. We need to bring more in the critical mass. The critical mass is increasing, I can tell you. The problem is that the problems are increasing as well. And what we are doing at the moment cannot reverse the trend everywhere. We have reversed the trend in many areas, but not everywhere. And this, we break the decline, and we have managed to have very impressive results. Those of you that are very young can not remember, for example, in my city or other big cities, the air pollution. the air pollution was really dangerous. Today, you go out in 5 million city and you breathe well. So there are in my city outside my country house, we had serious problems of marine pollution. Now, many species are back. In the vicinity of Athens, we have turtles, sea turtles and monk seals. Unbelievable. And this is because of policies and technology. And because we, of course, try. We are not celebrating great successes, but we are not actually neglecting and underestimate progress. Now I have a few questions, and the floor will be open to many of you. But there are a few more specific questions that I wanted to answer. Anna Maria has a question that many have on what an educator in a biosphere reserve, what is the best background, graduated in environmental or pedagogical sciences? This depends, but also Arabella mentioned that before. We cannot instruct, facilitate, inspire people without scientific knowledge. We need accurate knowledge, correct knowledge, in order to convince, but also in order to show the right direction. But we need to use proper educational processes, pedagogical processes for what we are going to do. So we need both. We may start from whatever and move to the other. In ocean literacy in particular, we need to know enough, much I should say, about the processes in the ocean, the different mechanisms, the natural mechanisms, which cannot actually be easily grasped by someone who has no scientific background. So particularly for certain aspects of the scientific part of that, an environmental background is an asset. But I repeat that it depends very much on how each one of us would like to invest in learning and making, because each one of us makes his own cocktail, if I may say so, of educational and pedagogical approaches. Now, the other one is and this I think I have answered also about the ocean literacy trainer. One more thing here, and this is also something we mentioned also, Arabella and myself. A trainer, at the end of the day, has to have her own emotional links with the environment and the society, both environment and society. So these links are stimulated by different driving forces for each person. My emotional, let's say, intrigue is both activity in the field with people, but also art. For me, something that is an artistic creation may be a better interpreter of emotion of other people to me, and vice versa. And this is not the same for everybody. So these things are important. The emotional part and the tools that link us, emotional tools, I call them tools, but are not necessarily tools, are expressions, to the environment and society, need to be understood by us to see how we react, what are our expressions, and cultivated in order to be good educators. In order to be good educators and bring our emotional, the motives and results out to our students. And this is very important. This is very, very important, in addition to the knowledge and knowledge on science and knowledge on pedagogies. One more thing. So the question also, how can I prepare myself to ocean literacy trainer? I think it has been somehow answered. The other thing is ideas about to broaden our audience. If we are talking in impactful ways, well, this is mostly for non-formal and particularly informal educators, because through formal education, the only way to broaden is through families. I mean, using our students as teachers in their own families. And we have to cultivate that. This is something that can be cultivated. I have personal experience on that, trying not only with my students, but also at primary and secondary schools, and checking, testing the impact. So it can be done. But when we are talking about the wider society, many times it is not enough to broaden directly ourselves, because directly in meeting rooms we have whatever capacity. All my life I'm doing that, but a lot of our impact comes now through social media, through internet, through others, where you can have the multiplier effect. And this, again, requires three things. First, clear message. The message should be crystal clear, understood immediately. Second, trying to catch the imagination and the interest of people in the very first minute that you give the message. And third, to repeat it several times in different, perhaps, narratives, because the message is something that is important. When the message is clear, then each one of us finds his own way to present it from the moment it is clear and she is convinced. And this is something that my experience shows that it pays back. Again, I stop here. If Arabella wants to add things or someone else, we have with us also Pandelis Harilau and others who may wish to say something. And then I have a third slot of questions to go back.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Very briefly, just to react on what you said, I will start with your comments and the questions that relates how can somebody become an ocean literacy trainer. First of all, it's very important to clarify it because it's an issue that very often raised through the master courses that we have in the university, that if I if I have a degree on environmental education or on ESD, can I work as a trainer? What I'm saying that it's not enough just to have, you know, the qualifications. The qualifications are those that they are opening you the path to do something. What is critical is to give your soul and your mind and your spirit to what you are doing. So what you said is, I agree absolutely with what you said, that to become an ocean literacy trainer, you need a passion and you need the spirit and you need to put your soul, something that, because people that will have a lot of educators, but it's not enough to be an educator. You have to be a good educator. The second thing that I want to add to this question is that we can't ignore the scientific knowledge, but somebody with the scientific knowledge on ocean literacy doesn't mean that is able or competent enough to teach or organizing the learning process in a most effective way. This is something that is not easily understood. The pedagogy of the things is very critical. If it wasn't critical, we shouldn't have so many regional policies, especially the last 5 years, indicating how important is the role of education for sustainable development, and how critical is to move to transformative learning environments, and how important it is to combine theory with praxis, and move to pedagogies that has to do from walk the talk. So pedagogy is a prerequisite to be not an ocean literacy trainer, a trainer on sustainable development issues. It's not lectures. It's not just to transmit the knowledge as in a linear way. Pedagogy on this issue has to deal with the field studies, has to do with elaboration of conflict issue, has to do with the hidden curriculum behind the issues, has to do with the engagement of local communities, local fisheries, for example, as part of a non-formal educators. So we need the pedagogy with the scientific knowledge. But to have just a degree on a specific scientific field, this doesn't make you an ocean literacy trainer. Now, regarding the question about the broader audience and how we can impact this, I think that this is the role that all of us, we have to work on independently from which sector we are coming from. And of course, the role of media and media communication, and that communication is very important to support and increase the people's motivation regarding, ocean literacy. I don't know if I missed something. At the moment, yes, I will stop here. I will not say something else because I want to give the floor to other people that they want to intervene, because I saw people. So, Michael, the floor pass to you.
Thank you. I see Isabella asking for the floor. And please take the floor, Isabella. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Thank you for having me here. I'm right now in Chad, in Central Africa. So I want to bring this dimension. Since we finished on a sort of sad note last week with a professor that was saying that, we're doomed, and unfortunately we have so many problems, it's going to be another century at least before we begin to solve them. I want to say that I'm actually astonished by the wisdom and the reaction of young African people when we speak about environment and the environment protection. They are extremely interested, they are very much informed, and they need to be enforced. They need to have the capacity. And of course, they need also some political aid, policies, and governors that help, which actually so far has not happened. But I want to, ask your advice, since this is such a special society. It's Chad, it's pre-industrial. The city is totally polluted, but it's polluted only with plastic parcels and what we would say, like general waste. It could take maybe not even 3 months to clean the whole city. We're next to a beautiful river. The river is not polluted at all. It's beautiful, it's wonderful. So since it's a pre-industrial country with some cities like this one, which are very dirty, but young people would really like to act and move towards a better environment, protect their biosphere. We're very close to Lake Chad, one of the biggest lakes of Africa, feeding some of the longest, most beautiful rivers of Africa. We are all connected, of course. I consider biosphere literacy in the same way as ocean literacy. What would you suggest? Which actions could we enhance? Imagine to be in this Europe pre-industrial. How could we? Africa is in front of us. We are part of it. I'm a Mediterranean, of course. So I feel close here. I feel close in every sense, culturally as well. What can we say? How can we empower African youth to go directly to the next stage of ocean literacy, ocean protection, environment and biosphere preservation? The floor is to you.
Thank you very much for bringing this optimistic approach. I think that one of the most important contributions of us as educators is to nourish optimism, and this is absolutely necessary. Otherwise we close everything. Bye-bye. So this is starting point. The second point, I doubt that I can give advice. I can only share some ideas, and perhaps others too. because the situation everywhere is the same and different. At the same, some principles and some of the human reactions are the same, but the specific conditions and interpretations are different. So you need to improvise based on what we can say. I can say few things, very few. Number one is truth. Presenting the situation, saying the situation is not good in these areas. Try to see what needs to be changed. Let's come together and see what actually we can all see that needs to be changed. It's much better to start with something on which you have a consensus of what needs to be changed than to project your ambition. The roof will come later, and you have to give them the chance to imagine the roof. But imagining the roof, they have to start with the floor. So I think this is the best lesson I can give for Africa. And actually to say that from the bottom or from the floor to the roof, there are many ways. And some of these ways have been tested in Europe, and they were mistakes that you may avoid. And others are tested and are promising. So one thing to cut corners and shorten the way to your objectives is actually to learn, to learn from both successes and failures. And you are fresh, you are less contaminated, and therefore you are more eager to jump. You are less tired to jump than some of us. So I think these are the main messages that you may perhaps.
Thank you.
Yeah. Try.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Spoulos.
Most welcome.
Thank you.
I don't know if there are any other questions. I have a few questions that I see some questions also about experimental approaches, about yes, indeed, we should be careful, but not we should not fear too much to try something new, but we have to be careful. This is something that that is basically science and consciousness together, because these are scientists sometimes feel that they have a weapon, a strong weapon, knowledge that needs to be applied. Yes, but this weapon is like a knife. The knife, the more sharp, better, but more dangerous. So it needs to be explained also to this direction. There are two questions, perhaps, before we go further, of Chokri and Vishal, about how we can have perhaps frameworks, share our efforts, have a platform, establish a permanent place for ocean literacy. Perhaps Iro or Vicky may say a few things on that, and we can go back on that.
Yes, we can share in the chat the link to the global action platform of IOC. So this is what the international community, UN community around the Ocean Decade proposes as a common platform to engage dialogue throughout the decade. We will add that in the chat. I had one comment only on the, actually two comments on the ocean trainer, ocean literacy trainer, what it takes to be a good or an effective ocean literacy trainer. Thank you very much for the discussion and the comments and the experience shared so far. My addition to this discussion would be, don't wait. Don't wait until you feel very confident. This is the same for ocean literacy and environmental literacy and teaching. If you like teaching, if you feel that you are intrigued by the way people learn and shape, especially if you're working with young minds, of course you will do mistakes. It's a constant trial and error process, but it's very exciting. You start, you experiment, you do something. Sometimes it works, sometimes it works very well, sometimes it doesn't work. You reflect on what didn't go so well and you improve. And I guess teaching is like that throughout our lives. And a second comment is something I find strength from others that maybe experienced scientists, maybe more experienced teachers than you, strength in field guides, people living in the environment where you want to make your intervention. And this includes, of course, the experience of local people. We learn a lot from local farmers, from local fishermen, people who live in the environment and make a living out of them. So use all these wisdoms, the official wisdoms coming from the universities and the experts and the scientists, and also these hidden wisdoms from people living in the environment, and draw from their strengths. So this is my comment on the ocean trainer. I don't know if anyone wants to take the floor.
I think we have to say what you started saying before. First of all of you, we hope that you are members, become members of the MEDIS, and you follow it and you contribute to that and spread it, because this is a good group of small, still critical mass of people, but for our region and beyond is perhaps the major in numbers. But the second thing is also that all of you who have interest, what Jero mentioned before about the different projects, keep that in mind. For the, unfortunately, we at the moment, we don't have the resources to bring non-Europeans around. This in the past was addressed through our core funding. We hope that we'll have something similar for the rest of the non-European Mediterraneans. I promise that we work on that. We will try our best to do that. At the same time, there are many other opportunities. And if you are connected and stay connected, you will be informed every time on the existing opportunities. I think we have answered most of the questions.
I see Arabella. Arabella is
Yeah, I
raising
see
her hands.
Arabella.
Okay.
There is something about local mistrust on authorities, and I will come back to that. But first, I would like to ask Arabella to reflect. And if there is any other question from the floor, please show. Arabella, please.
But two things to add on what Iro said. Iro, at the end, raised the issue of have internal motivation. And I agree absolutely with what she said for training and trainers. However, what worries me is that, yes, it's very important to improve on your pedagogy and to reflect on the mistakes that you're doing. Nobody's perfect. And every time in our teaching process, at the end, we're realizing things that we could do in a better way. What I'm saying is that it's very important people that working in this field, not ocean literacy, on ESD field in general, to know very well the pedagogical approaches. Because it's not enough just to say that I'm doing a teamwork, for example, as an approach. It has to do with how you do it. It's not just to read it. So it's very important to go in depth to this issue. And something that, as the second thing that I want to add is that despite the fact that we are discussing now for ocean literacy, we have to be very careful because we cannot see oceans and ocean literacy in isolation or something distinct from education for sustainable development. It's like, you remember, Michael, before 10 years when it was this fashion to have a specific subject, a specific discussion on consumption and production, literacy. And then came something else. And now, very recently, the climate literacy. But all these issues, they cannot be seen isolated.
Yeah.
Because all these issues are operating as a system. We are talking now for ocean literacy because the results of our non-sustainable lifestyles leads us to this crisis, which impacts the oceans. So, from my point of view, it's very important to see this issue in relation with the rest of the issues, independently if we are working on specific projects that address ocean literacy. Ocean literacy is very critical, and for the Mediterranean, much more. But we have to think that is a system. And first of all, to become ocean literate citizens, we have to become environmental literate citizens and sustainable literate citizens. We don't have to forget this umbrella. Thank you, Michael, for giving me the floor.
No, thank you very much. Thank you. And I risk to say something. I hope not to be misinterpreted. It is not enough to be an enthusiast about the environment, or an enthusiast about ocean, or about the society. Is not a teacher. An enthusiast is not a teacher. We cannot play with children, saying whatever we want. It is absolutely necessary to know how you don't damage the brains of young children. And unfortunately, even professional educators do not know that. is not enough to have, as Arabella said, a degree, even in pedagogy. So we have to be very humble and very careful on how we approach actually. And knowledge is absolutely necessary. It is a talent. There are many things, what we said about emotion, but you need also knowledge. You have to read, and do both. Otherwise, you remain at the surface, and surface, approaching things on surface is not good. We need to encourage people really to enrich their knowledge and their capacity to do things. But the capacity to do things needs to start in a humble way, not in a very aggressive way. This is nothing to say against what Eero said. You need to experiment, you need to do things, but you need always to have also the background and also to be humble. And as she said, to get advice from more experienced people in your endeavors. All this is a dynamic system. There is very difficult to say 10% of that, 20%, 30%. It depends on the different situations and everything. But we have to have all these elements in mind at the same time. And as a teacher for many years, I have also confidence also on knowledge that is not only reading, knowledge coming also from experience, but humble in front of the knowledge. A lot of knowledge is required to be a good teacher. Now, I see that there was a request, I think from Mr. Harilau.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you. I just wanted to share with everyone a view from another perspective on education. Of course, you know, educating tomorrow's citizens, tomorrow's the future decision makers is extremely important, and that's you know, there is a lot of focus on that. In my everyday work, the biggest challenge we've got is to inform, influence, guide today's decision makers. You know, the people in administration who will take decisions now. And in a more Victorian, I would say, style, you can have meetings, you can write reports, you can organize conferences, you can use iconic flagship species, you know, and all these approaches. But what we found out in practice is that the best way to get them involved is to get them out on site. It really works. Get them out on site to see the issues firsthand, and that's when you start making a difference in the history of the area that we manage. The biggest successes come when you get the person who will make the decision out, away from the office, because you know, when you have meetings, when you have when you follow the other approach, you lose the practical side of things. Things become very theoretical. They become very abstract. They may show an interest at the beginning, but then you lose them. I think what stays with people is when you take them actually out to face the real problems, and there's always a lot of reaction. You know, the big bosses, the big decision makers don't like going out. They think it's a waste of time. I mean, you've seen it in the conference you had in Cyprus when you arranged the site visits. I'm not sure, you know, what happened to the other places, but in our site visits we had mostly NGOs, if I'm not mistaken. So it's really important, I think, to get people out. It makes a big difference, and unfortunately, you may get people very high up in the decision-making, you know, chain. For example, for the ocean, as we're talking about the ocean literacy, who have never put a mask on, have never snorkeled, don't know what is under the surface. So I don't know if I'm very cruel or very
No,
direct,
you are very right.
But I think this is how I see things. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let me add to what you say, which is absolutely, I see everybody agreeing here. Let me put it, generate a little bit generalizing of that. Of course, this is one of the basics of environmental education and education for sustainable development. For, as we said before, about knowledge, for the passion for, and all that, and in the environment. The in from the beginning is one of the major methodologies, but for decision makers is even better. There are two things there. The first is to take them out of their office. Not necessarily in nature, but out of their office, out of their box, out of their area of comfort and confidence. This is the first thing. And believe me, being for many years activist, I know how this works. And the second is to put them not in a difficult position, particularly when they are decision makers of the moment, but to an inspiring area, and this is the natural environment. So I agree with you, and I give you also some of my experience and also some of the theoretical background of bringing decision makers out. And on that, the question put about lack of confidence on authorities and the rest. I don't know if this is linked directly on education. It links on education when authorities try to say something and many people doubt immediately just because it comes from authorities. This is sometimes expected. Is not fair all the times. It needs to be, we need to be open-minded and have a critical approach, critical thinking and critical approach. Sometimes they try their best, and it's a pity to waste these opportunities. Other times they only use this as a green screen. But this is up to us to understand. And this is part of our education. Education should enhance the critical thinking and the ability to see and understand what is really good, what makes sense, and common sense is a very good tool for educators of sustainable development and of ocean literacy. Common sense needs to be trusted, but also cultivated. It is not something that because we call it common sense, we have it. Many people around us have no common sense. And this is something that needs to be also cultivated and somehow awarded, I mean, recognized. I see that Arabella would like to intervene.
Yes, thank you, Michalis, and thank you, Pantelis, for your intervention. I agree absolutely with you, but I will speak from the part of an authority that doesn't feel confident. We have to understand and we have to realize is that ocean as an issue and the issues that related with ocean are more complicated on how you approach them to the field. Okay. Non-formal education is very important to cover this gap of formal education. And Pantelis mentioned this very well, and it's very good that he mentioned it because they are trying now in the Akrotiri Environmental Education Center to build an ocean literacy program. I'm very keen to this. However, there is a lack, and this is the fear and the lack of confidence. There is a lack of mechanism, okay, for somebody to take the responsibility, ensure the safety despite the safety plans that we are doing. And of course, nobody, a teacher, will take this responsibility. At the moment, this issue
Talking about safety
yes.
of students?
Yes.
Or safety of policies?
No, safety of students, because okay. I saw it's very important, and I fully agree with Pantelis, and it's very good that I raised this issue. But we don't have to ignore that the ministry or the a competent authority, okay, to give these licenses, he must have this mechanism to ensure and persuade parents that, because to get in the sea, and despite the fact that we are saying that everything is controlled and we will be in this area, the water is something that always creates this anxiety and this stress. We have to overcome these fears, but we have to start, let's say, from the coast, okay? Let's familiarize people with the coast, and then we are going in, or to develop, despite the difficulties that we have, or to develop programs where include parents and children together. I mean, it's not so easily this issue. Anyway, I just wanted to comment on this because I am from the part of the authority that is not confident, and is not confident because the complexities that has to do to have a kid in the water.
Thank you. I see that Martina, who works on that, has something to say. I think Pantelis mentioned two things. The one is what you said, Arabella. The other is taking decision makers out of their office in the field, because this is convincing. And we need both. I mean, this is why I ask about policies. But Martina.
Yes, thank you. Yes, just to reply to Arabella is exactly what I found in all, let's say, in all my field-based experiences. the lack of trust from local stakeholders is due to this attitude from the local authorities sometimes who are too close in their buildings. And even when we perform our field-based work, for example, I have a background in the diving sector since I was a child, so I am a sort of exception. But among my colleagues from the research field, from the institution and so on, often, as someone said before, we are talking about people who never been underwater, so they are talking about things that are, we know, fascinating, because there is a big emotional dimension behind the ocean literacy and the marine environment in general. But the most important thing is this fact of trust. Both between supervisor and students and scholarship holders, for example, in the research institutes. I experimented also this kind of issue in my first steps of my career. And also in the field-based mission, for example, what I recently obtained is a manual which was conceived with the active participation of local stakeholders and the diving owner, for example. But in the end, since in the past, the attitude of a researcher, of the expert on the field, was only trying to establish a relationship with these people, we need to remember that they are seasonal workers, so they perform very hard work on the field, but they are seasonal workers. And let's try to bring from them information to make the scientific studies, you know. But I think it's not the correct attitude, because they are adults, they are people, they have a brain, so they perfectly understand when we are lying them or we are establishing a relationship only for a second aim. So I think we need to reflect on our own commitment and on our behavior before. And then, okay, we have also the luckiness of theoretical and scientific background, which is an advantage, but the tangible dimension, I think, is the most important thing to succeed in this kind of task, which is not easy, I know, but I think, basing on my personal experience, I think it will be the nice road, the best road to follow. Oh,
Mike.
Michael.
Thank you very much for this actually experience sharing. I think also I see from Bevan now working on biosphere reserve with experiences, and I mean, it's not contradiction to go back to say what Iro said about I mean, don't afraid. At the same time, try to bring a lot of information, share your passion, share your appreciation of nature. Don't afraid to be there and use all what it was said also by Martina. And at the end of the day, be honest. This is something that everybody will understand. If you are honest with what you say, and to the children, say honest things, this is safe. So it is always what supplements perhaps lack of theoretical knowledge or whatever. I see Marie-Thérèse wishing to take the floor. Marie-Thérèse.
Yes, please keep it brief, because we are already 10 minutes after.
Late.
Yes,
Okay.
so Marie-Thérèse.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Professor Schools. I want to say 2 words. After my experience in the cleaning campaign for 7 years, I saw 2 things we need to make it. Working with decision maker, it's mean in universities, in schools, in schools, talking with the decision maker responsible and make a intensive. For example, for each campaign, I make a certificate of attendance. When student hear about the certificate of attendance, everyone come and participate. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is using always incentives. I mean, incentives, there is a limit of how much incentives we give because we need also the real intentions, but it's also always good to have also a small something to catch actually the interest of everybody. I think we'll close here. We hope that all of you, thank you very much, Arabella, thank you very much, Vandelis, thank all of you. Thank you being all with us. I think you have to open and make a picture now, all of us. And also, I hope that this is not the last opportunity for everybody of us to meet and communicate. Hiro and Vicky are there to help all of you to navigate in all our material. And it was great to have once again this hybrid university concluded. And thank you very much indeed, Arabella.
Thank you very much, all of you. Until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye
all.
bye.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for being
much.
with us.
Keep up the
Bye.
good work.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you so
Bye, bye.
much.
Bye
Bye.
all.
Bye.
Bye.